Meditation and spiritual life, Swami Yatiswarananda. Sex control at the mental level. However, through physical means alone, one can never control sex, which has its roots deep within the personality structure. The most important is to tackle the problem at the mental level. We find that imagination plays a dominant role in our life. Apart from sex fantasies, subtle shades of sex get mingled with our ordinary thinking. Though Freud undoubtedly exaggerated the role of sex in a normal man's life, there really exists some connection between sex and the imaginative faculty in man. This connection often gets stronger through wrong associations, and as a result, many people find themselves imagining the wrong sort of things. There is nothing to get upset about all this, provided one keeps oneself physically aloof from all objects of temptation. Still, wrong imaginations and guilt feelings are a great source of torture to so many aspirants. But brooding only makes the problem worse. The problem of imagination has to be tackled in a systematic way. The main point to note is that the mind should never be allowed to form wrong pictures and brood over them. This is possible only by the practice of producing counter thoughts. This is what Patanjali advises us to do in his Yoga Sutra. To obstruct thoughts which are inimical to yoga, contrary thoughts should be taught. Vitarka badhane pratipaksha bhavanam. This is an important technique of great help to spiritual aspirants. What is it? Vitarka badhane pratipaksha bhavanam. To obstruct thoughts which are inimical to yoga, contrary thoughts should be brought. By constantly thinking good thoughts, the whole old bad thought structure can be changed. We may be near a bad or impure thing physically, but at the same time can be very far from it mentally and psychically. In order to remain unaffected, we should raise a strong mental barrier to insulate ourselves on the thought plane. But this is not enough. It is a negative process. We should bring in a positive factor also. That is, we should think of the divine or of some holy personality more intensely, filling our whole mind with that thought. Draw yourself away physically and mentally, and then give your whole mind and attention to the divine alone, and do not allow it to stray away towards the object of temptation. Do not allow yourself to go near it, either physically or mentally. Then, in a very easy and natural way, we learn to draw ourselves away from the things and persons that tempt us, to raise a strong barrier between them and us, and to remain unaffected. Physical nearness is not the only danger. The person who tempts us may be far away physically, but we feel a tremendous attraction for him or her on the thought plane. So, even when the person who attracts us or the object that tempts us is only on the thought plane and not physically near, we should do exactly and scrupulously what we are told to do on the physical plane. That is, we should in no way communicate with that person, but should dissociate ourselves mentally from him or her, draw our mind away from all thoughts connected with the object of temptation, and raise a strong barrier or even a feeling of loathing or disgust for that person. And after having done that, we should see that we give all our thoughts and feelings to the divine alone. This is a very important step. Vitarka vadhane pratipaksha bhavanam is then done, step 1, but then fill the mind with the divine. That is somewhere we become lazy. Creating a strong dislike or disgust for the object of temptation is not the ultimate solution, but in many cases it proves to be very helpful as a stepping stone to the sublimation of feelings and desires, and so it should be made use of. It is a very vital point to do this consciously, deliberately, in a systematic way. At the same time, one may do more of japa, practice more meditation and prayer, repeat some elevating passages, even if the mind is divided or is in a state of unrest, even if there is a terrible tug of war going on in the mind. Somehow or other, in the case of all aspirants, a strong counter current of spiritual thought is to be raised. Practically speaking, all our troubles are more mental than physical, and unless there be mental troubles, there can never be any physical ones. Unless something in us responds to the outer stimulus, whatever it may be, there can be no object of temptation. So, the defect lies in us more than in others. If we are not able to create the higher mood as soon as the trouble arises, we should first draw ourselves away from the person or object of temptation and then try to create that mood. There should be a conscious, deliberate cutting off in all such cases. Those who are always in a higher mood will experience less temptations. It is only when a man forgets God or his higher self and dwells on the worldly plane that temptations come upon him frequently. Always keep a good stock of holy imaginations and ideas. Leela Chintana. So that you can use them as weapons the moment any undesirable thought or feeling arises and tries to find some expression on the mental or physical plane. Suppose a person attracts you. Raise at once a very intense counter picture. See the God in that person. Imagine that the person is Imagine that the person is dragging you down, and think at the same time strongly of your Ishtam or chosen ideal, setting the picture of your Ishtam against that of the other person. Thus it becomes easier to evade the subtle charm of the object of temptation and to change the thought and feeling regarding it. Suppose you saw a beautiful plant in a shop is tempting you, and you can't stop yourself from thinking of buying it. And what the author is telling, think that, again that plant will drag me down into attachment to that plant. In that moment, if I place the picture of my Ishta Devata in that plant and think about him, think about his Leela, think about his words, his thoughts, then slowly my mind's hold onto that plant will diminish for a moment, and I can pull myself out of that. So this is a trick that is useful. Thus, it becomes easier to evade the subtle charm of the object of temptation and to change the thought and feeling regarding it. But one should love one's chosen ideal intensely. That needs to be practiced earlier. No love for Ishta, then just superimposing a mental picture there will do nothing. Those who love God intensely are not easily affected by the charms of physical beauty and sex. Another effective way is to merge all forms that rise in you into the light of yourself, which is always shining in you and which forms your real nature. What is this? Another effective way? It is to merge all forms that rise in you. So the form of that plant rose in you. Merge it into the light within. Temptations can take place only in the dark regions of the unconscious mind. Direct the searchlight of the Atman into all these shadowy areas. All the hideous images that lie crouching there will vanish in the brilliance of the self. Bring all submerged forms into the focus of higher consciousness, and you will see that they vanish at once. Consciousness has such a tremendous power, but few people care to do this. You see, the whole trouble is this: our images have acquired reality. We forget that images are only images. Each image becomes as it were a real person and haunts us. We should learn to deflate these images and deprive them of life. In the beginning, this may be difficult. Then, we have to bring in another good image in order to counteract the bad ones. But the technique of deflating the images must be learned by all, one day or other. When you feel drawn towards a person, if you can regard him or her as a mere shadow or something unsubstantial, then the charm and influence he or she has on you will disappear and the fight would become a very easy one. But generally the attraction is such, and our consciousness so confused and full of wrong notions, that we do not even want to do this in most cases.